We need to get to some breaking news this morning. CMPD now identifying that woman who was found dead on Sanders Avenue as Frezja Baker. Baker is the Charlotte mother who has been missing since last week. Police found her body and a car that matched the description of her car on Sanders Avenue near Beattiesford Road yesterday. Neighbors we spoke with who believed it was her say they were shocked by the discovery.
It's the most horrific thing you could hear. As just being in the community, not even, I'm sure the family is going, emotional in this sense, because to hear that your family member has been found in a car, that's truly sad.
Baker's cause of death is undetermined at this time. Police have yet to name a suspect.
At 9:52 p.m. on December 4th, 2025, Frezja Matisse Baker, a 31-year-old mother, was captured on surveillance fueling her gray-blue 2004 Honda Accord near LaSalle Street on the edge of Charlotte, North Carolina. Minutes earlier, she had dropped off her 2-year-old son, Miles Baker, with his grandparents, Sharon and Kenneth Williams, and had last checked in with her brother, Tyrone Baker, by phone. After that call, Frezja's whereabouts became unknown. Days passed with no confirmed sightings, unanswered calls, or leads pointing to her location. Nearly a week later, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department responded to a death investigation in the parking lot of an abandoned church near Sanders Avenue and Campus Street on the city's west side. Behind the building, her vehicle sat untouched. Inside, investigators located Frezja Baker's body. The case would later lead to the arrest of Lorenza Thomas Inman Jr., who was identified by authorities as the individual responsible for her death. What began as a routine evening drive had escalated into a homicide investigation with unanswered questions at every stage.
Criminal history involving the man accused of killing this woman, Frezja Baker. She's the Charlotte mother, had been missing for a week when her body was found in a car in West Charlotte on Thursday. Lorenza Inman Jr. is charged with murdering Baker and is being held in the Mecklenburg County Jail tonight. And our Michael Warwick has learned Inman faced a previous attempted murder charge several years ago and was convicted of that. So Michael's live in the newsroom with these new details tonight that he's uncovered about Baker's murder, when it happened, and Inman's prior attempted murder conviction. So, Michael, what have you learned?
Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Frezja Matisse Baker, a 31-year-old resident of Charlotte, North Carolina, was a mother to a 2-year-old son. Known for her close-knit community ties and conscientious nature, Baker balanced her responsibilities as a single mother with daily errands and work commitments. Her routine demonstrated a consistent pattern. She managed her child's care, attended to personal and household tasks, and maintained regular communication with family members. Neighbors describe her as reliable and attentive, consistently present in her child's daily life and active within her immediate social and familial circle. Baker's family connections were strong. Her extended family, including grandparents and siblings, were actively involved in her son's upbringing. Her social life was largely family-oriented, with minimal contact with individuals outside her known circle. This consistency in her personal associations became a crucial factor when investigators later examined her last known movements and potential contacts. Her daily routines were predictable. She regularly dropped off and picked up her son at designated locations, completed errands at local stores, and fueled her vehicle at nearby gas stations. Frequent communications with family members, particularly through phone calls, ensured she remained connected and easily locatable within her usual patterns. These consistent behaviors provided a baseline for investigators when attempting to reconstruct her final hours. On the evening of December 4th, 2025, Baker engaged in her standard evening activities. She completed routine errands, which may have included visits to local stores or brief stops at friends' residences, consistent with her established patterns. Later in the evening, she dropped her 2-year-old son off at her parents' home, a practice she maintained regularly to ensure her child's care while attending to other tasks. At 9:52 p.m., surveillance cameras captured Baker at a gas station near LaSalle Street in North Charlotte. Footage confirmed her presence at the location, documenting her final verified movement. Shortly thereafter, at approximately 10:30 p.m., she contacted her brother by phone. During this call, she indicated she would be home in about an hour. This conversation represents the last known communication from Baker prior to her disappearance. After this point, she was no longer reachable by phone or social media, and her whereabouts remained unknown. Investigators identified several last confirmed sightings. Surveillance footage from the gas station and other nearby establishments provided timestamps and locations for her movements that evening. Cellular data and GPS pings from her phone offered additional information regarding her route and potential locations she may have traveled to. Witnesses in the vicinity of her final known locations were interviewed, although no immediate leads emerged from these accounts. Potential contacts and associates were reviewed as part of the investigation. Police examined the possibility that individuals may have been near her vehicle during stops or that prior acquaintances may have had recent communications with her. Any contact outside her usual circle was considered significant, given the limited social interactions documented in her routine life. The absence of Baker from her expected return home triggered immediate concern among family members. When she failed to arrive as planned, her relatives attempted to contact her via phone and social media. Initial attempts to locate her through routine channels were unsuccessful. Family members conducted early search efforts, including knocking on neighbors' doors, visiting familiar locations, and driving along her typical routes. These early measures reflected a rapid recognition that Baker's absence was inconsistent with her established behavior, particularly in relation to her young child. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, CMPD, was contacted following the family's inability to locate Baker. Law enforcement classified the situation as a missing persons case. Officers collected initial information, including details regarding her vehicle, a gray-blue 2004 Honda Accord with a temporary South Carolina license plate, and her recent movements. Surveillance images from local businesses, including gas stations, were released to the public in an effort to identify her location. Media outlets were engaged to amplify awareness of Baker's disappearance. Press releases provided the public with details of her last known movements, photographs, and vehicle information. Coverage by local news stations and online platforms facilitated broader community vigilance.
Well, tonight, a heartbreaking end to the search for a missing Charlotte mother.
CMPD says 31-year-old Frezja Baker was found dead inside a car in the Washington Heights neighborhood. Her family confirms that someone has now been arrested in connection with her death.
WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre is live near where her body was discovered. And Jesse, what's her family saying tonight?
Well, they are devastated by all of this. And again, just a few days ago, we were here across the street with the family and friends as they passed around this flyer, desperately looking for Frezja Baker. And tonight, they are grieving. A father in disbelief, trying to process a week of fear that ended in tragedy.
I just hate that she's gone. I hate that.
31-year-old Frezja Baker found dead in a car left near a church off Sanders Avenue and Betty's Ford Road. It's the same area dozens searched for days after Frezja vanished last Thursday.
My daughter was sweet, kind, lovable, and gave the shirt off her back.
Excellent mother.
Frezja's cause of death has not been released, but her family say a man she was last seen with is now in custody.
The detective exact word was, we got him, we picked him up, we arrested him. That's what it is. And we charged him with murder.
Frezja's father didn't hold back, sharing strong words for the man he believes is responsible for his daughter's death.
But there's two words I really don't say. I hope this dude burn in hell. Because he had no business doing what he did to my daughter.
And a final message to his daughter.
I love you, and you're always in my prayers for the rest of your life. And you will never be forgotten. Never.
Frezja leaves a 2-year-old son behind who is currently with family. Now, CMPD has not confirmed an arrest or charges at this time, and they have not confirmed a cause of death as well. Live near Washington Heights, Jesse Pierre, WCNC Charlotte.
Absolutely heartbreaking. All right, thank you, Jesse, for that report.
The combination of family-led searches and media dissemination established an initial framework for locating Baker, providing both law enforcement and the public with actionable information. The information gathered during the early stages of the investigation highlighted specific investigative priorities. First, establishing a precise timeline of Baker's movements on December 4th, 2025, became critical. Surveillance footage, cell phone data, and witness statements were reviewed collectively to determine potential deviations from her usual patterns. Second, law enforcement focused on her network of contacts. Given Baker's predominantly family-oriented social life, any interactions outside her known circle warranted investigation. Officers examined recent communications, potential meetings, and associations that could provide insight into her disappearance. Third, vehicle tracking and identification were prioritized. Her Honda Accord, documented through registration and temporary plates, serve as a focal point for searches and inquiries. Surveillance and traffic camera systems along potential travel routes were reviewed for evidence of her vehicle's movements. Finally, media and public engagement remained an integral component. The release of information regarding Baker's disappearance created opportunities for witnesses or individuals with knowledge to come forward. Public attention was deemed necessary to generate leads that law enforcement alone might not immediately uncover. The initial phase of the investigation into Frezja Baker's disappearance established several key facts. Baker was last seen on the evening of December 4th, 2025, after completing routine errands and dropping off her son at a family member's home. Her final verified movement was recorded on surveillance footage at a gas station, followed by a phone call to her brother. Attempt to locate her following this communication proved unsuccessful. Family-led searches, combined with law enforcement investigation and media dissemination, constituted the primary response to her disappearance. Surveillance footage, cellular data, witness accounts, and examination of potential contacts formed the foundation for reconstructing her final known movements. These efforts set the stage for subsequent developments in the case, including the discovery of her vehicle and the transition from a missing person investigation to a homicide inquiry. By documenting Baker's routines, last movements, and social connections, the investigation provided a factual baseline for understanding the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. Each piece of evidence and timeline reconstruction played a critical role in informing law enforcement strategies for locating Baker and identifying potential suspects or persons of interest. The search for Frezja Baker began immediately after she was reported missing on December 4th, 2025. In the first 3 days, law enforcement and community members concentrated on canvassing the neighborhood surrounding her last known location. Officers from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, CMPD, visited streets near LaSalle and Newcastle Streets, where surveillance footage had captured her vehicle at a gas station. Local residents were questioned, and patrols were increased in areas where she was believed to have been traveling. Volunteers, consisting of family, friends, and local neighborhood groups, joined in the search, walking streets, checking vacant lots, and examining potential routes she might have taken. Flyers containing her photograph, vehicle description, and last known whereabouts were distributed door to door to ensure maximum coverage. By days 3 through 5, the search radius expanded significantly. Investigators extended efforts to surrounding Charlotte neighborhoods and neighboring regions, including areas accessible via major roads she might have used. Social media played a critical role during this period. Platforms such as Facebook, neighborhood-specific apps, and community groups were used to post alerts, share updates, and solicit information from the public. Residents were encouraged to report any potential sightings or information regarding her vehicle. CMPD also utilized local media, providing updates to television, radio, and online news outlets to amplify public awareness. Community involvement remained high, with volunteers conducting organized search parties and distributing additional missing person posters to businesses, libraries, and public gathering spots. The coordination between law enforcement, media, and citizens created a network designed to maximize the likelihood of locating Frezja quickly. Despite these efforts, by the end of fifth day, no confirmed sightings or definitive leads had emerged. While unverified reports surfaced on social media, including alleged sightings at gas stations and public streets, investigators treated each claim with caution, verifying details through witness interviews and corroborating evidence. The continued absence of concrete information placed additional pressure on CMPD to locate Frezja, emphasizing the importance of a structured and methodical search. On December 11, 2025, nearly a week after she had been reported missing, CMPD responded to a call that would change the course of the investigation. Behind an abandoned church located at the intersection of Sanders Avenue and Campus Street in West Charlotte, officers discovered a vehicle matching the description of Frezja's 2004 gray-blue Honda Accord, equipped with temporary South Carolina license plate HBL 5984A. The car was positioned behind the property, partially obscured from the street view, suggesting that it had been deliberately placed in a location not easily visible to passers-by. Its position indicated careful consideration, although investigators initially could not determine whether the location held significance or was chosen opportunistically. Upon confirming the vehicle, CMPD immediately designated the site as a death investigation. Forensic teams were dispatched to secure the perimeter, ensuring that evidence would remain uncontaminated. Investigators documented the scene thoroughly through photography and videography, noting precise position of the vehicle, environmental conditions, and any objects or marks that could serve as potential evidence. The vehicle was examined externally for signs of damage, forced entry, or struggle, and the surrounding area was combed for discarded items, footprints, tire tracks, or other forensic traces. While the body inside the vehicle was identified as Frezja Baker, the cause of death and the condition of the remains were not immediately released to the public. Following the initial documentation of the scene, investigators began a detailed forensic assessment of the vehicle. Interior surfaces, including seats, floor mats, and personal items, were scrutinized for DNA, fingerprints, or any trace evidence that could help reconstruct events leading to her death. Cellular data and GPS information were retrieved from Frezja's mobile devices to track her movements in the hours before her disappearance. This data helped establish a timeline, confirming her last known locations and communications while identifying potential deviations or anomalies in her route. Witnesses residing or working near the church and along her likely travel paths were interviewed to determine whether any suspicious activity had been observed prior to or during the time she was believed to be missing. The discovery of Frezja's body prompted CMPD to officially upgrade the investigation from a missing person case to a homicide investigation. This change in classification shifted the focus of the operation toward establishing intent, identifying suspects, and understanding the circumstances surrounding her death. Investigators reviewed her known contacts, social interactions, and relationships, examining phone records, social media activity, and financial transactions to determine if any connections could provide leads. They also assessed her routines and patterns in the days leading up to her disappearance, seeking irregularities that could indicate premeditation or involvement of outside parties. Through ongoing investigation, CMPD identified Lorenza Thomas Inman Jr., a 38-year-old male from Maxton, North Carolina, as a person of interest. The suspect was located and arrested based on evidence linking him to the crime. Inman was formally charged with murder, assault on a female, and domestic violence. Law enforcement conducted thorough background checks, revealing prior criminal history and probation status, which were considered relevant to the investigation. The arrest represented a critical milestone in the case, providing investigators with suspect around whom additional forensic, digital, and testimonial evidence could be focused. Evidence collection continued following the suspect's arrest. Forensic teams revisited the vehicle and surrounding area, seeking items that could corroborate the suspect's involvement, including any physical traces, personal effects, or electronic devices. Investigators also conducted further interviews with neighbors, colleagues, and associates to establish the suspect's movements and interactions during the critical time frame. Digital evidence, including text messages, call log, and location data from both the victim and the suspect, were analyzed to confirm timelines and verify alibis. These efforts aimed to reconstruct events accurately, ensuring that every lead was examined and cross-referenced with available data. The combination of methodical search efforts, community involvement, forensic analysis, and law enforcement coordination underscored the complexity of the case. From the initial neighborhood canvassing and volunteer searches to the discovery of the vehicle behind the abandoned church, each phase provided critical information that progressively shaped the investigation. While the discovery of Frezja Baker's body confirmed the tragic outcome of the disappearance, it simultaneously opened multiple investigative avenues, including suspect identification, forensic examination, and timeline reconstruction. This period of the investigation highlighted both the role of public cooperation in missing person searches and the structured processes required in homicide investigations. Social media, local volunteers, and media reporting accelerated the search, ensuring maximum visibility. At the same time, forensic protocols and law enforcement procedures provided the framework to collect evidence systematically, preserve integrity, and establish a foundation for prosecution. By combining community engagement with professional investigative rigor, CMPD was able to transition from uncertainty regarding Frezja's whereabouts to a focused homicide investigation that identified a suspect and provided a clear path forward in pursuit of justice. Following the discovery of Frezja Matisse Baker's body in her vehicle behind a church in Charlotte on December 11, 2025, investigators developed probable cause against the suspect. Warrants were obtained for the arrest of Lorenza Thomas Inman Jr., 38, who was identified as connected to Baker through known associations. Inman was arrested in Maxton, North Carolina, on December 12, 2025, and transported to Mecklenburg County for processing. Authorities charged Inman with murder, assault on a female, and a misdemeanor domestic violent offense in relation to Baker's death. These charges were filed by the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office, which is responsible for prosecuting felony offenses in the jurisdiction where the alleged crime occurred. The murder charge reflects the belief that the death was unlawful, while the additional count of assault and domestic violence indicate alleged prior or simultaneous acts linked to the victim. Following the arrest, Inman was held in custody without bond, reflecting standard procedure for violent offenses where the defendant may pose a flight risk or danger to the public. The prosecution's case against Inman is based on multiple elements of evidence and contextual factors. Investigators confirmed that Inman and Baker were in a dating relationship at the time of the incident, establishing a direct link between suspect and victim. Inman's criminal history includes prior convictions for violent offenses, including attempted murder and other assaults. He had served time in prison and was on supervised probation at the time of Baker's death, a factor prosecutors are likely to emphasize to demonstrate risk and potential escalation of violent behavior. Evidence expected to be presented by the prosecution includes forensic analysis from the vehicle and crime scene, digital data from Baker's cell phone and GPS logs, and witness testimony concerning interactions between Baker and Inman prior to her disappearance. Patterns of domestic violence may be introduced to establish context and motive. The defense may challenge the admissibility of certain evidence, question forensic interpretations, and explore alternative explanations for the events of December 4, 2025. As of the current stage, detailed witness lists and statements have not been publicly disclosed. Pre-trial proceedings begin with an initial court appearance where Inman is formally advised of the charges and legal rights. Subsequent hearings may include arraignment, plea entry, and motions addressing the admissibility of evidence or other procedural issues. Pre-trial hearings also establish schedules for evidence disclosure between prosecution and defense. If the case proceeds to trial, it will take place in Mecklenburg County Superior Court, where felony cases are adjudicated. Jury selection, presentation of evidence, witness testimony, and cross-examination will follow. The prosecution will present its case first, followed by the defense's arguments and evidence. In the event of conviction, sentencing will follow, with potential penalties including decades of incarceration, and the defense may pursue appeals based on procedural or evidentiary claims. Local news outlets reported extensively on Baker's disappearance and the subsequent discovery of her body. Stations and newspapers provided updates on her last known movements, the discovery of her car behind the church, and law enforcement's transition of the case to a homicide investigation. Press conferences by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department provided official statements, requested public assistance, and shared limited details about the suspect and ongoing investigation. Local coverage also highlighted community concern and the involvement of friends and neighbors in the search for Baker. Following local reports, the story received national attention through crime reporting websites and social media amplification. The circumstances of a young mother disappearing and later being found dead in her own vehicle drew widespread interest. National outlets focused on the facts of the case, including the arrest of the suspect, while noting the ongoing nature of the investigation. Coverage emphasized the sequence from disappearance to discovery, situating Baker's case within the broader context of violent crimes involving intimate partners. In the absence of complete public disclosure of evidence, online discussion and social media commentary generated speculation about motive, potential alternative suspects, and timing of events. Some members of the public questioned the probation status of the suspect, the timing of law enforcement response, and the role of prior domestic disputes. While speculative, these public conversations reflected community concern about safety, accountability, and the criminal justice process. Inman's criminal history, including prior violent offenses and domestic-related convictions, highlights systemic concerns regarding domestic violence and the effectiveness of probation supervision. Analysts note that repeated exposure to the criminal justice system, including prior probationary periods, may have influenced both risk assessment and monitoring procedures. Patterns of domestic violence are critical in evaluating escalation potential and provide context for prosecutorial strategy in this case. The circumstances emphasize the importance of preventive measures, reporting mechanisms, and early intervention to protect potential victims. Charlotte and Mecklenburg County have experienced notable homicide rates in recent years, particularly in incidents involving intimate partners. Statistical analysis of regional violent crime indicates that certain demographics, including young women involved in relationships with individuals with prior violent histories, face higher risk factors. This case underscores patterns observed in similar contexts, reinforcing the relevance of targeted crime prevention and risk assessment strategies. The case illustrates implications for neighborhood and community safety. Residents are reminded to be vigilant regarding individuals with histories of violence and to utilize available protective measures. Local authorities emphasize preventive programs, public awareness campaigns, and community engagement as central to reducing risk and improving response to potential threats. Educational efforts focus on recognizing warning signs of domestic violence, reporting unsafe situations, and understanding legal options for protection. The case of Frezja Baker demonstrates the intersection of individual tragedy, systemic response, and community responsibility in addressing violent crime. The disappearance and subsequent death of Frezja Baker had a profound effect on her immediate family and the broader community. Baker's relatives expressed the challenges they faced in processing the events. Statements made to local media revealed the deep disruption her absence caused within the family structure. Multiple family members highlighted the difficulty of balancing daily routines while attempting to navigate the uncertainty surrounding her whereabouts. Efforts to maintain normalcy were complicated by the need to care for her 2-year-old son, whose routines and security were directly affected by the sudden loss of his primary caregiver. Legal guardianship and childcare arrangements were temporarily adjusted, and family members indicated the logistical and emotional strain these changes imposed. The family reported ongoing efforts to manage grief through structured schedules, engagement with support systems, and coordination with law enforcement to remain informed on the status of the investigation. The emotional and practical impact on Baker's son was immediate and tangible. Though young, the child's daily care and environment were altered as a result of her disappearance and confirmed death. Extended family members assumed responsibilities typically managed by the mother, including feeding, sleep routines, and supervision. Documentation from social services and child welfare agencies noted adjustments in routines, highlighting the challenges of maintaining consistency for a child experiencing the absence of a parent. The family network, encompassing grandparents, aunts, uncles, and siblings, coordinated to provide stability. Yet official reports acknowledge that the child's psychological and developmental response to these events remained uncertain. The network's adjustments were largely logistical but formed the basis of a broader strategy to ensure continuity of care and maintain the child's safety. Neighborhood and community response was evident through organized events and public tributes. Local organizations and residents initiated vigils and memorials to mark the discovery of Baker's body. Physical memorials, such as flowers, photographs, and messages left at sites associated with the investigation, were noted by law enforcement and local media. These gatherings serve multiple purposes: to acknowledge the life of the deceased, provide a structured space for collective acknowledgement, and reinforce community cohesion in the face of a violent crime. Community stakeholders also reference broader initiatives aimed at supporting victims of violence, including advocacy for local domestic violence resources and campaigns designed to increase public awareness of the risks posed to vulnerable populations. Law enforcement coordination with neighborhood associations facilitated controlled access to memorial sites and ensured public safety during gatherings. The case surrounding Frezja Baker's death continues to present a series of unresolved investigative and forensic questions. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department indicated that multiple forensic reports remained pending at the time of public disclosure. Autopsy results, toxicology reports, and detailed forensic analyses of the vehicle and surrounding scene were cited as critical to determining the cause and manner of death. Investigators acknowledged the complexity of confirming the timeline of events and reconstructing movements leading up to the discovery of the body. Key details, such as the exact location of any pre-discovery contact with the suspect, the timing of her final communications, and potential deviations from expected travel routes, remain under investigation. The pending forensic data were anticipated to clarify these uncertainties and provide a clearer sequence of events. Investigative leads were identified as a priority for law enforcement. Police emphasized the need for additional CCTV footage from businesses and public spaces along Baker's last known route. Potential witnesses, whether residents, commuters, or individuals with interactions near the vehicle discovery site, were encouraged to come forward. Authorities also pursued verification communications, including text messages, phone records, and digital correspondence, to account for undisclosed interactions that could provide insight into motive or opportunity. Reports indicated that gaps in the suspect's timeline were a key investigative focus, with law enforcement seeking confirmation of movements, alibis, and contacts during the period surrounding Baker's disappearance. Information obtained from these sources was considered critical to solidifying charges and supporting prosecution. A public call for information remained active throughout the investigation. CMPD issued statements requesting anyone with knowledge of Baker's disappearance or relevant interactions to report information to designated tip lines. Both anonymous and identifiable reporting channels were promoted, and public rewards were offered to incentivize the provision of credible leads. Police statements emphasized the importance of community participation in resolving gaps in the case and facilitating the administration of justice. Public communication efforts also included coordination with local media outlets, dissemination of updated investigative findings, and engagement with online platforms to broaden outreach. The investigation into the disappearance and homicide of Frezja Baker followed a structured sequence from initial reporting to the eventual discovery of her body and the arrest of the suspect. On December 4th, 2025, Baker was last observed after completing routine parental duties and making final communications with family members. Following several days of uncertainty, her body was located behind an abandoned church in Charlotte, North Carolina. The discovery prompted the transition from a missing person case to a formal homicide investigation. Forensic and digital evidence collection proceeded alongside witness interviews and community engagement, ultimately leading to the identification and arrest of a suspect. Charges included murder, assault on a female, and domestic violence-related offenses. Investigators continued to verify details of the suspect's movements, connections, and possible motives, while awaiting completion of pending forensic analyses. The case illustrates broader systemic considerations, including the vulnerabilities associated with domestic violence, gaps in supervision or reporting systems, and the necessity of community vigilance. Law enforcement emphasized the importance of coordinated response, ongoing investigations, and public engagement to ensure that unresolved elements were addressed. The sequence of events highlighted the logistical and emotional burdens placed on families in the wake of violent crime, particularly in cases involving minors and single-parent households. Community response demonstrated both organized action and informal measures to memorialize the victim, support the bereaved, and reinforce awareness of safety measures. Ongoing efforts to address unresolved questions underscore the complexity of homicide investigations, where motive, timeline, and forensic detail are interdependent. The public was continuously urged to provide any information, enabling law enforcement to clarify gaps and strengthen the case for prosecution. The trajectory from disappearance to arrest and pending trial reflects the operational procedures followed in serious criminal investigations, while emphasizing continuing need for evidence and community participation in the pursuit of justice. The story of Frezja Baker represents a case study in procedural response to violent crime, illustrating the interplay between forensic investigation, family impact, community reaction, and systemic considerations in domestic violence-related homicides. Pending results in future court proceedings will provide additional clarity and final resolution. Until then, the case serves as a record of investigative strategy, public engagement, and the social dimensions of sudden, violent loss in an urban environment. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.